I think we're ready now. Chair recognizes that the Lenore County Board of Education has established a quorum and calls the June 5th, 2023 regular monthly meeting to order. Chair recognizes Mr. Nick Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system. And may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interests of our young people. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Brent Williams to present the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, it's my honor and privilege tonight to present to you for your consideration and hopefully your approval tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a recommendation or a motion pertaining to the agenda?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cash. We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mrs. Cash to approve the board agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. The agenda is set for tonight's meeting. First thing I would like to do is we customarily recognize our elected officials, and I would like to welcome Mr. Preston Harris with us here tonight. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate all you do for us.
Thank you.
Also, I do have some comments I'd like to make, so if you just please bear with me. We have a full agenda for tonight, and I would ask that each board member have their questions and or comments ready for our presenters. I would also ask that you request to be recognized before your questions or comments. This will help facilitate an orderly, timely, efficient, and effective meeting. We would like to continue to thank all of the teachers, staff, and employees, regardless of job description, for the outstanding commitment, dedication, and hard work that goes into making the students of Lenore County Public Schools successful, as well as the Lenore County Public School system itself. We want to assure all stakeholders that the Lenore County Board of Education and the administration will continue to commit to doing everything possible to provide for a safe and healthy environment for all students, staff, and our community. With the school year coming to a close, there are numerous promotions and graduations scheduled for this week. We would like to congratulate all of the Lenore County Public Schools students for an outstanding year and for all the honors, recognitions, and accomplishments they have earned. The graduating class of 2023 has earned a distinct honor pertaining to scholarships awarded this school year. We will have an update of the total amount of scholarships earned so far by the class of 2023. And Mr. Williams will continue to highlight more good news about the hard work and dedication that Lenore County Public School students and staff have put forth that has resulted in numerous honors, recognitions, and accomplishments. And with that, Chair recognizes Mr. Brent Williams to present the following honors, recognitions, and accomplishments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chair noted, it is June 2023. Doesn't seem real, does it? It is. And our kids and our teachers and other staff members are working so hard in our schools, and the work certainly is paying off. And it's been a good school year. 22-23 has been an outstanding school year. And I want to commend everyone for their hard work, as the chair noted in his comments. But I also I really want to say thank you for everything that all of our team members have given to our united purpose to do all that we can for the students and staff members that we serve. I want to thank members of the Board of Education for your leadership and all others who contributed to it. We always appreciate it. I always appreciated being leader of the school system, but never more so than now during this time of continued pandemic and recovery, when we've all been through so much. And there's been so much that's been amended, changed, canceled, or made less in some way. And our kids have gone above and beyond, and they're not only, people use the words coming back, getting back to where we were, we're going beyond where we ever were. And I'm really, really proud of that, proud of our young people for all that they're doing. Tomorrow, we've had, I think, 67 school events in the last 5 school days. Our schools are active, and they will continue to be this week as we go up until graduation at our last 3 of the 5 on Saturday. Tomorrow we'll have our second of our 5 graduations in our series with Lenoir County Learning Academy tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the campus of LCLA at the Kennedy home site. So we're excited about that. We had Early College High School a couple of weeks ago, and we have our 3 traditional high schools, Kinston High, South Lenoir, and North Lenoir High School will graduate on Saturday this week. So congratulations to all of the graduates of 2023 for earning your high school diploma and all of the great work that it took to get there successfully. And thank you to all that helped him. It does indeed take a village, so tonight I want to pause to acknowledge and to thank every member of that team in our village. So thank you. Tonight you'll hear about something outstanding, something record-setting, history-making. Our kids have earned more scholarship dollars than ever before in the history of their school system, in our history of our school system. Now that would be an amazing accomplishment at any point in any year. But if you look, not being any further than this through the pandemic, when so many school system scholarship dollars plummeted during the pandemic, when so many numbers were askew from what they ever had been and not in a positive way, that our kids are still trending. Their trend line of earning scholarship dollars, academic scholarship dollars, continues to increase at an unprecedented pace. We heard the word unprecedented thrown around during the pandemic in ways that were not good. Unprecedented this and unprecedented that, because we all went through so much as a world, as a society. But now I'm pleased to tell you something that's great, that's unprecedented. The scholarship totals that Mrs. Herring will present tonight from our high schools, and our principals are here, and we'll ask them to come up during that so that we can acknowledge that hard work, because you know, leadership matters, and leadership matters significantly, and great leadership has never mattered more than it does in this moment. But our leaders didn't do it by themselves, our kids didn't do it by themselves, our staff members didn't do it by themselves. It was collaborative. So we'll acknowledge them tonight, but we'll celebrate all on these great accomplishments. Our kids are going to the top universities, earning top scholarships. But now remember, when you're listening to Ms. Herring's presentation tonight, these are not, because I had this question last year, because thankfully this is not the first time we've presented on unprecedented scholarship dollars totals for our kids. And I had somebody say to me, oh, well, you're including grant money in there, or you're including loan qualification totals. No, we're not. These are academic scholarship dollars earned by our young people. I'm so proud of that, and it continues to go up. So just excited about that, and look forward to your hearing it. Tonight, it's my great pleasure to congratulate one of our students. We honored at last month's meeting Ms. Skylar Harrison, who intends to be a teacher. She's going into the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Program, and we're excited for Skylar. But Skylar has earned another scholarship, another $10,000 scholarship on top of the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Scholarship. And at our May meeting, we had Skylar spoke to you for a few minutes on her perspectives about the win. We're pleased to welcome her back. We'll ask her to come to the July meeting. She's an aspiring special education teacher, and she won the Transformational Scholarship, akin to the Teaching Fellows, valued at $10,000 a year for 4 years, and this will go along with Teaching Fellows to be supplementary to that. So just Skylar's doing great things. You heard her perspectives last month about how excited she is about joining this profession and putting her hands to the work of serving kids, and she's from this school system, is going to come back here, she says, and work. So pleased about that. When you see Skylar, congratulate her if it's before next month, and we'll all congratulate her at the July meeting. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Any comments? Okay, as I have said before, more examples of the amazing things that are happening in Lenoir County Public School Systems with our students and our staff. And we do have someone that has signed up for public comment. Let me remind of the board policy. Ms. Dr. Malcolm Beach has requested to speak. As a reminder to all, per board policy, comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per person. No one will be allowed to be heard in open session regarding student or employee matters. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board except to request clarification of points made. Dr. Beach? And Mrs. Murchison will be our timekeeper for us.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. What I wanted to speak about tonight is Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday for June the 19th all across the country as well as in Kinston and Lenore County. However, on that weekend, that Sunday, the African American Museum and Cultural Center, of which I am the president of that institution. It's an educational institution. That's why I'm here to seek some help here. And basically, we're going to talk about the freedom. It's called Freedom Day. This was the date that we celebrate around the country when the slaves were freed. Many of you have heard about the Emancipation Proclamation that was January 1st, 1863. That did not really free the slaves in the South. That was a proclamation by President Lincoln because he was in dire straits. The North was losing the war, and he had to figure out something to do strategically. And what he did was, through the Emancipation Proclamation, he allowed African Americans to fight with the Union forces. And the United States colored troops came into existence in 1863. 200,000 of these ex-slaves joined the Union forces. Like I said, before 1863, the South was winning. After 1863, suddenly the North started winning more battles and eventually won the war. So what we're celebrating on Juneteenth Day is the date of freedom. This is the last record. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the exact date, but it was the last record that we looked at when slaves were finally freed in Texas. But since 200,000 of these African American soldiers fought with the Union, the slaves actually freed themselves. And they needed to get credit for that. And that's just some of the things that we're going to talk about on Sunday, Father's Day, at the festival. You know, we have over 30 members of our community. Actually, it's probably 50 members if you include Jones and Greene counties that were actually soldiers with the United States colored troops. And we're going to honor them as well as many fathers, because most of these U.S. colored troops were fathers, in fact. So Father's Day is an appropriate time to give them that honor. But we just wanted to share that with you today, invite all of you down to the African American Music Park. We have a great fun. It's from 3 to 7, and I hope you all can join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Beach. And as always, we would like to thank all our stakeholders for their time, interest, concerns, and comments pertaining to Lenore County Public School and our community. Okay, now we will move to the presentation portion of the agenda. Chair recognizes Mrs. Frances Herring to present a summary of the 2023 Summer Learning Opportunities.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Education. Thank you for your time tonight. I will be presenting on the summer programming we are offering to our LCPS students this year. We begin like we begin every year with what we call our short summer session. This is a 3-day intensive review for students who do not reach proficiency on their end of grade or end of course exams, but they come within a few short points. This runs from June 12th to the 14th and is held at each school site by their own teachers. The retesting day is June 15th. The state allows us to retest before June 30th. This opportunity is not required, and it is also not funded by the state. We choose to do this on our own in order to ensure our students have as much opportunity to show proficiency as they can. Students are not required to attend, but they are highly encouraged, and our success rate is tremendous. Every year, we have offered this retesting opportunity in every subject and every grade level, and we have always had increases in proficiency percentages. It is definitely worth the time, the energy, and the resources. But our theme for our regular summer programming is a play on the movie series Mission Impossible. But our camps are Mission Possible. Well, when are these Mission Possible camps? The maps of July and August show you the days that we are in session for our 7 learning opportunities we have for our students, kindergarten through 12th grade. There really is something for everyone. Our days are from 9 to 1:30, and we provide transportation, breakfast, and lunch. Our first learning opportunities are for elementary students. For our 3rd grade students, we are offering the Read to Achieve Camp, which is mandated by legislation. We've had Read to Achieve Camp for nearly 10 years, and it targets those students in 3rd grade who need additional reading support as indicated by several pathways given throughout the year. Students in 3rd grade may reach a Read to Achieve pathway by successfully completing a series of reading passages, or reaching a Dibble score, or the Read to Achieve end-of-year EOG test. For our other elementary, middle, and high school students, we're offering the Summer Enrichment Academy, or what we like to call SEE. We're offering this opportunity above and beyond what the state requires for summer enrichment. All students are welcome to attend, but some are recommended if they need to take advantage of, for example, credit recovery in high school, or an opportunity to work on increased standards mastery in any grade level. The Summer Bridge Academy for Rising 6th graders is a part of what was formerly required during summer programming during the COVID pandemic. But we chose to continue the Summer Bridge Academy for Rising 6th graders because we believe in the value this opportunity provides for our students as they transition to middle school. Traditionally, across the state and nationally, achievement drops in 6th grade, and it's attributed partly to the transition from elementary to middle school. Part of our response to that dip is offering the Summer Bridge Academy for interested rising 6th graders. These students get to see their new schools, meet their teachers, and they get introduced to the upcoming curriculum. It is definitely a win. Our Career Accelerator camps are the only camps that we offer that are 1 week at a time. Students can choose to attend 3 different camps for each of the 3 weeks, or just pick and choose a camp that interests them. As you can see, we're offering a huge selection of interesting opportunities. The ACE Academy has to do with flight and working with Spirit Air Systems. We have drones and careers, district seed teamship internships. It's time for health, exploring agriculture, automotive customizing and repair, STEM coding and robotics fun, First Tech Challenge robotics, Spanish and cultural studies, masonry, food prep and nutrition 101, the basics, art, theater, the art of interior design, band and introduction to twirling, student leadership development, and college readiness workshops. And finally, each summer we offer a camp for only our migrant population, and it is certainly a big success each year. Participation is always fantastic, and the field trips, activities, and learning that happen are exciting and fun. This camp is offered in August at LaGrange Elementary for all K-12 migrant identified students. And that concludes my report for our summer offerings for the summer of 2023. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions from Mrs. Herring?
I have one.
Yes, Mr. Anderson?
Is this your last year of funding for this? We haven't.
So that's a great question. So the Read to Achieve is a continuous funding source that the state does allocate for us. But yes, sir, this is the last year of the funding for the Career Accelerator and the Rising 6th Graders Camp.
So it's something folks need to take advantage of.
Yes, sir, it is. Absolutely. Thank you.
It's our last funding to do it on this scale. We still will be doing it, but it'll be on a smaller scale. The funding, is already allocated for the ESSER, the last of the ESSER. The RTA funds will continue That's a dedicated source that existed prior to the pandemic, but the funding source that we're using for the rest will sunset fall '24, so we should be able to do something of some substance, some comparable substance next summer, but we really want to do it in some form perpetually.
All right, any more questions for Mrs. Harry? Any comments? Thank you, Mrs. Harry. And as Mrs. Harrington stated, this is a wide variety of opportunities available to all Lenore County Public School students, and as Mr. Anderson indicated, they need to take advantage of it this year. Chair recognizes Mrs. Frances Harrington to present an overview of the 2023 student scholarship totals for Lenore County Public Schools High School. Lenore County Public Schools High School.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'd like to ask, we've invited our high school principals to be here this evening. I'd like to recognize each high school and their scholarship award amounts. Thank you, Mr. King. I will be presenting them in alphabetical order.
So let's have them all come up first.
Okay, y'all, Mr. Santaman, Ms. Bryant, Ms. Green, and Ms. Pierce. Hey, everybody. The early college high school had a total of $1,300,000 in scholarships.
For how many graduates?
For
41
41
graduates.
graduates.
How many two-year college degrees from that number, Mr. Sandeman? 35.
Kinston High School has an award of $6,245,047.
7 years ago, that was 2.9 million. And just so you know, we track everything. As we mark our progress, these are important milestone markers.
North Lenore High School has an award of $4,084,265. And South Lenore High School has a scholarship award of $6,531,109. For over nearly $17 million.
17 and daily. These numbers change today. They continue to change as the scholarship awards continue to come in. But we're thinking it'll go higher still in the next few days, maybe not. But this is amazing, folks. And you look and you see the poster out there, and our number last year was what? 9 million. We've been as high as 12 million. The most recent number is 9 million, but 12 was a peak prior to this, our pre-pandemic peak. And we've not only, as I said in my opening today, returned to form. And as people say, the cliche description is back to where we were. We're not interested in that. We've gone beyond where we've ever been. I'm so proud of them and the work they're putting into it. Just to let you know about specifics, it's not just that the kids are applying for everything, they are, but they're getting encouraged to do so. Ms. Bryant, Ms. Pierce, Ms. Green, would y'all like to talk about the liaison work that we're doing through UNC Chapel Hill, another grant, where the liaisons there are working with our kids and going into the homes and helping people create successful FAFSA form applications for financial aid and applying for scholarships, figuring out what scholarships exist that they might be interested in, and dispelling something from as basic as dispelling myths to just building relationships with kids and making them believe that they can because they can. Do y'all want to say anything about that?
We've been blessed to have really good advisors, UNC advisors come in. They come in every 2 years through the grant through the UNC systems, which is now spread to the other schools, not just coming from UNC Chapel Hill. They'll be coming from other colleges as well this coming year, which is great. But every 2 years they rotate, and they're graduates, they're recent graduates of college. So they've gone through the process, but I think the biggest thing is they communicate. you know, ours sent out a weekly newsletter to parents and a weekly newsletter to the students and gave updates and reminders and just stayed on top of them and made sure the teachers shared it out every week. And so that communication piece was probably just getting it out there, you know, because when you don't know, you don't know. And so the more that I applied, and it's just a really great thing this year. I told her she has to replace her with somebody even better because it's going to be hard to beat this summers.
I think they're an extension too of our counselors. My hands down, that number I attribute completely to my counseling department. They're amazing, and I think that our liaison through UNC, aside from the fact that they meet with every single senior and every single parent, and they can look at them and tell you what their plans are, it's not just about those that have university aspirations or community college aspirations, but the workforce, trade. No matter what, there's still scholarships for all of those students. And so just like what she's saying, you don't know what you don't know until you find out what's out there. And I think the biggest piece to that, aside from that, I don't know if you've ever filled out one of those FAFSA, can I say that? But I have, and it makes you feel very incompetent at times. And so I think just taking away that unfamiliar territory with parents and letting them come into our schools and walking them through that process has taken a lot of, that's been very beneficial. And I think that's
And going into the
across
homes.
levels and steps, yes.
Going into the homes, opening of the schools up on Saturday, making academies for this.
Yeah, it
This is
will make you
amazing
lose
stuff.
your mind trying to fill those out. So having that person there to really walk you through that, I think that's been extremely beneficial for our parents because it's just very helpful of having that support system in our schools.
Anybody else like to say anything about that? In Mr. St. Amand's case with Early College High School, they had 500,000, 600,000, 700,000, 900,000 once, and they just totally blew that out of the water this year. Same process, even though they don't have a dedicated position for that, but just working the kids, relationships. Mr. St. Amand, Mr. Calvin Sutton, Mr. Kelvin Green, in there working with the kids every day. Every day, have you done this? Have you turned this in? Have you called the college? Have you checked on this? Calling the parents, following up. It's amazing, folks. Like I said in the opening, the village, this is the village. These are the villagers here working for that same mission, and I'm so proud of them, so proud of our kids, and the results are impressive. So, let's give them a round.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Herring or any of our principals? Any comments? Anyone would like to make any comments? All right, thank you, Mrs. Herring. As Mrs. Herring said, it is a record number of academic scholarships earned by Lenore County Public School students. To me, this represents the quality of the students in the Lenore County Public School System as well as the quality of education that they receive. Chair recognizes Mr. Brent Williams to present North Carolina School Board Association's Policy to Lead the Schools Policy Revisions.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. North Carolina School Boards Association has submitted the policy revisions that you see through the Policies to Lead the Schools subscription that we maintain with them, and these are in response to recent legislative action. The policies are submitted to the board tonight for consideration with action to be taken at a subsequent meeting.
Are there any questions for Mr. Williams? Any comments? Thank you, Mr. Williams. As Mr. Williams stated, these policies will return at a subsequent meeting for board action. As you review the policies, if you have any questions, please contact Mr. Williams. Chair recognizes Mr. Eric Adams to present the May 2023 financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members. The May 2023 financial report summarizes budget year-to-date activity for all Lenore County Board of Education funds as of May 31st. Additionally, the report presents the local current expense fund balance for the same time period. As you have an opportunity to review the report, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions, Mr. Adams? Any comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams, for that report. We will now move to the action portion of the agenda. Chair recognizes Mr. Eric Adams to present budget amendment number 4.
Yes, sir. Budget amendment number 4 is being used to revise the working budget of Lenoir County Board of Education to reflect changes that have occurred throughout the fiscal year. In your agenda, you'll see the individual program report codes being amended by this budget amendment. As you have an opportunity to review the amendment, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from Mr. Adams? Okay, Mr. Adams, is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to budget amendment number 4? Motion by Mr. Anderson, is there a second? Second by Mr. Woods. We have a motion by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mr. Woods to, to approve budget amendment number 4 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Adams will revise the 2022-2023 working budget to reflect these changes. Chair recognizes Mr. Eric Adams to present the 2023-2024 budget resolution.
Yes, sir. The 2023-2024 budget reflects the state public school fund planning allotments that we received from DPI. The local current expense fund reflects our current county appropriation and estimated fines and forfeitures. Federal grants funds are based upon the planning allotments as well as carryover funds. Capital outlay funds reflect lottery funds and half-cent sales tax revenue, as well as a prior rebudgeted amounts for the digital lease payment. School food service fund is prepared with anticipated revenues and expenditures. The trust fund budget is prepared using actual amounts in our trust funds. And the other local current expense fund is prepared using anticipated revenues and actual carryover amounts. We did make the decision to go forward with a full budget resolution at this point due to the consistency of the planning allotments that we've received in lieu of an interim budget, which would cover us for 3 or 4 months. We did have an accurate planning budget to move forward with the resolution, and we'll amend as necessary.
Are there any questions for Mr. Adams? Mr. Adams? Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the 2023-2024 budget resolution?
Vote to approve.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Got a motion by Mr. Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. King. We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. King to approve the 2023-2024 budget resolution as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Adams will implement the working budget resolution.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Brent Williams and Mr. Nick Harvey to present a proposal for architectural design services for the E.B. Frank Middle School project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, at the March meeting, the board approved SFLA, Ferris and Associates, to be the architect for the architect design selection. Through that process, and in consulting with our attorney for facilities from Tharrington Smith, Rod Malone, it was recommended to us that we re-release the RFQ in order to create the strongest grant possible. As you know, we are creating the facilities grant submitted to DPI this summer, and we're working hard on that now. And it was recommended that we release the RFQ basically to redo this process, and we have done that. And the RFQ has run its course. Those submissions have been selected and scored, and I'll let Mr. Harvey talk about that. But tonight we're coming forward and we have a recommendation for you. All right, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. As Mr. Williams just indicated, we did re-release the RFQ. The recommendation was to re-release after consulting with Tharrington Smith and SFLA. There's a new provision that will allow the use of extra funds if necessary to meet our obligation as prescribed by the grant. So therefore, we needed to re-release the RFQ to reflect the federal requirements in an RFQ. There are 5 criteria points: expertise and past K-12 projects, staffing, and prepared design team, sustainability in school design, proximity to and familiarity of the area, and the grant application process.
And
So
where does that come into play? That comes into play in a big way because all of the projects that we're bidding out are actually coming in over what was originally estimated. And that's just the nature of construction now. It's the nature of supply chain dynamics. It's the nature of the world right now. It's our reality. So if, you know, the grant is for $50 million, if there are supplemental funds needed, the largest not encumbered, not already encumbered, largest single funding source we have is ESSER, and if we're allowed to use that, this would give us greater flexibility in doing that and navigating through that funding landscape. Because I think the worst thing in the world would be getting close but not being able to get there. We certainly are partnering with our commissioners, and we're grateful for them and their support, but we're really hoping that as much of this as we could do on our own, we certainly want to do that, and this would allow greater flexibility in that column of consideration.
So after careful reconsideration of all 5 respondents, we again respectfully ask that the board allow the superintendent to enter into negotiations with SFLA as the architect design firm for the new E.B. Frank Middle School project.
Your same motion as the March meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Williams and Mr. Harvey?
Just make sure I understand. So what you're saying with that federal is that if when it comes in over the 40 million that the grant,
It's a $50 million.
it's 50 now, okay, 50 million that the grant offers, then we may be able to use some of those funds. too.
Yes.
Okay.
And the original RFQ did not have the federal, it was not the federal RFQ.
Right.
But during our negotiation, we found that you could possibly, if necessary, we had to re-release the RFQ.
For
to
different
reflect
parts of it, not the whole thing,
Right.
but something like design
just those
consulting fees and
5
such.
criteria points.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Williams and Mr. Harvey? All right, thank you, Mr. Harvey. Mr. Williams, is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the architectural design services?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second? Second by Mr. King. We have a motion by Mr. Woods and a second by Mr. King to approve SFLA Architects for the architectural design services for the E.B. Frank Middle School project as presented. Any discussion?
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion is actually to provide direction to the superintendent, authorize the superintendent to enter into negotiations with SFLA to begin negotiating the contract for the terms of that. And then once that contract
And
is
we would bring the
negotiated,
contract
it would
back.
come
That's
back to
not
you all.
to do it singularly, but it would be to pursue a contract with this architectural firm and to bring that back for your approval at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, so does that actually need to be stated in the motion?
Amend the motion.
Yes, so the way that it's written in the agenda is how I think you made the motion. It's just not how you had repeated it, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to clarify so that all board members understood that the motion as it is in the agenda is,
That got changed then.
which reads to allow the superintendent to enter into negotiations with SFLA.
Okay, do we need to restate the contract?
No, sir.
Okay. Restate the motion, excuse me.
No, sir.
All right. So is there any discussion then? All right. Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now, Mr. Williams will notify SFLA architects of this action.
You're notified.
Notice is hereby given. All right. Chair recognizes Mr. Nick Harvey to present a proposal for consideration of the use of construction manager at risk for the E.B. Frank Middle School project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we will ask you to approve the use of the CM at-risk construction method for the new E.B. Frank Middle School project and to authorize the superintendent to issue an RFQ seeking a construction manager for the project. A lot of you may be asking, what is CM at risk? Well, we have an expert in CM at risk that will help present that
And
to you tonight.
This is another step that we believe can strengthen the grant application, because you're not just showing what you would do, but you have a clear plan of what you intend to do and the people with whom you intend to do it. And this would, the vote tonight would, we're requesting permission to release an RFQ. Same process, only this time for construction management.
So tonight I invite Mr. Robbie Ferris, President of SFLA, to join and present to you. Thank you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you. First off, thank you for allowing us to work with you. This is a super exciting project, and we're really looking forward to getting started with the project. Dottie Sloan is with me today. Before we get into the CM at risk delivery method and the other options that we have to go over with you under the general statutes, Dottie is going to take just a really quick minute to update you on the project. So Dottie, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you.
This is some exciting stuff, board members. I saw this today. You're gonna love this, I think.
I'm excited to present it, so thank y'all for letting us come out today. So I want to start with the site plan of where this building is going to be. So over on the left side of the image, you can see where our existing building is for E.B. Frank Middle. All the way down on that bottom left corner is where that gym is, and that's what we're planning on keeping. And the general goal is to tear down the rest of the building so we can have a new, beautiful building put on this parcel behind the existing space. So the goal is to keep the ball fields where they are, have the school as close as they can be to said ball fields, and to provide a new entry point for the school as well. So with this, we have two separate loops, one on the left side for buses, where those kind of purple stripings are, that's where the bus loop is. And on the right side is the loop for carpool. Now this isn't completely figured out yet, we still have a lot of time to go for this, but before we talk with DOT about that, this is the general length of road that we'll have for this, just so we can get all of the cars off of that main road. So we have these two separate loops, so the kids coming in and out of school don't have to overlap, they don't have to cross this traffic to get into their respective vehicles on the way home, as well as having a central parking lot for staff and visitors coming into that school. So everyone is separate coming in, there's no crossing traffic, which is a really good thing to have. As well as this being close to the ball fields, we do have an opportunity for not having to cross these as well as you make your way down to the ball fields, either for after school extracurriculars, anything during gym, you've got it, easy access. Moving a little bit further into the actual floor plan of the school here, and that central zone, that really light purple, it's a little bit hard to see on this screen, but
Oh yeah, right here.
okay, that helps a little bit. Okay, so this right here is our entry vestibule area. It's secure. That's our main point for guiding who comes in and out of school, the first set of eyes on who comes in. So keeping that a little bit secure. And over on this angled portion next to the vestibule, that's where all of our admin's gonna be. As you walk into the school, we're greeted by the lobby, dining area, this big central double height space for students and staff and everyone coming in to visit. And over on the west wing of the school, that's where we have all of our gym, our health and PE classes. We have some of our electives as well as choral and instrumental band. And then up on that north side, we move into where dining and the kitchen is. So on the back side, that's where back of house is. And then on the right wing of the school, this is where we have all of our classrooms and our central learning common space that really helps promote collaborative learning and teaching among students and teachers. On that northern side of the wing, that's where we have the rest of our electives. So this could be places for shops, computer labs, art. That's where the rest of that is going to sit. And on the lower wing, we have our 6th grade classrooms grouped in the appropriate way. So these groups of teachers who work together, they're able to be right there with who they need to be teaching their kids. And then on the second floor, it's a similar layout. One wing for 7th grade, one wing for 8th grade. Still similarly organized for your groups of teachers, and it looks down in this double height space to these collaborative zones and in the learning commons below. So really having a central point of learning, bringing students together, independent learning and teaching, and hoping for a good new school. Any questions about the layout?
I see the media center.
Media center, so the media center is the learning commons, vice versa. So a lot of teaching and learning now is electronics, so there's gonna be a lot less books. We do have space for bookshelves and the necessities of that, but all of that's gonna be in that central area.
And this is based on some schools that we've designed in the past, and if you would like to go tour some of those buildings, we'd love to set that up. I think some dates have been perhaps floated.
We're
and
trying to set something up for July.
Yeah, so we'd love to show you all some schools. And by the way, nothing here is set in stone. This is really for the purposes of getting the grant. We know the DPI will very much appreciate this what we're showing you today. We've met with them on other similar projects, and they really like this direction. So we think you'll like it. Again, we'd love to set up some tours and would encourage you all to go look at some buildings, some newer buildings that you could help us figure out whether that's really right for you. Any other questions about that before we move on to the CM at risk conversation? No? Okay. Thank you, Dottie. Okay. I am not sure how to expand this. Can I get some help here? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so this is a presentation that Rod Malone at Tharrington Smith put together. I'm going to stand in for him today. We're going to go over the different construction delivery methods, and the general statutes say if you're considering CM at risk, which is really what we would recommend, you have to have an understanding of the other delivery methods, and you actually have to make a motion to go with the CM at risk delivery method. So I'm going to go over these different delivery methods. I'm going to do it in summary fashion. There is a lot of detail here, and I'm happy to answer any questions and take as much of y'all's time as you'd like. But I'm going to try and summarize it to the greatest extent possible out of respect for your time.
They like summary. Summary's good.
Summary's good, okay. Yeah. So the first method is design, bid, build. And when you think about hiring a contractor, this is generally what most people think about. You go out and you get a design from an architect and you put it out for bids and you pick the low bidder. That's generally how most people know of contracting. 20, 25 years ago, this is the way we built most schools in North Carolina. It does generally result in the lowest cost. The market has evolved over time. And I would say nowadays, this is a delivery method reserved primarily for additions and renovation type projects. Certainly not new buildings. I was going back before I came today, I went back to look at all of the new buildings that we're currently doing. And for schools, we don't have one new school where we're using this delivery method. So it's really kind of an obsolete model for new buildings. Again, used for additions and renovations. We are doing a handful of addition renovation projects under this model. Again, without going through all of the detail here, probably the biggest advantage to this model is on bid day, it generally results in the lowest price. The biggest disadvantage for a new building is that it's generally your higher quality contractors are not going to be willing to participate in this model. And often, we have 3 addition projects in our office right now. They're schools that we're using this model. 2 of them we had defaulted contractors on. So 2 of the 3, the contractors have defaulted or severely failed to deliver. Puts a lot of risk on you as an owner if you end up with a bad contractor in a low bid situation. Any questions about this delivery model without me going through all the details? Does this make sense? Okay. Moving on to construction manager at risk. I don't know exactly when this methodology was created, maybe 25 years ago in North Carolina. This is, I would say, by far the most commonly used methodology for delivering schools. Construction of schools, new schools in the market. You basically hire an architect, that would be us, and then you hire a construction manager who's also your general contractor. We would design the building just like in the other delivery method, except that we're working with the construction manager during the design process, and they're giving us feedback. They're reaching out to subcontractors, trying to understand where the market is. And as your superintendent has already told you, the market is all over the place. Prices continue to go up. We're hoping that changes sometime soon, but it doesn't appear to be going that way. So anyway, this is a good delivery method for a market that's going through a lot of inflation, because we're working with the contractor throughout the design process to try and figure out what things are going to cost and anticipate the cost of the project before we get to bid day, so we can make design changes throughout the process. You know, there's, I would say that the pros and cons of this have evolved over time, and I would, again, by and large, this is the delivery model used for by school districts all over the state. It doesn't work well for small projects, but your project is not small. Yours is a big new building. Any questions about this delivery model? There's a couple more that we need to go over. Okay. So when you do a construction manager at risk delivery model, your contractor or your construction manager is required to do a handful of things that you see outlined on this page. One of the things I think is important to note is that they are required, the construction manager is required to put all the subcontract packages out for bids. So the contractor will bid, or the construction manager will bid the plumbing and the mechanical and the electrical. One of the nice things about this methodology, it does allow them to use, to generally increase their percentages of local and minority participation, because they have time to drum up those bidders. In a low bid situation, that first delivery method, the construction manager, no one has any control over what those percentages are, right? You just put it out for bids, and it ends up being what it is. Under this delivery method, the construction manager can actually go out and try to drum up those local and minority contractors to bid the project. So we generally see much higher percentages with this delivery method. The construction manager will put all of those bid packages out, and they will be publicly opened, probably here in your office, is generally where we would open the bids, is at the Board of Education office, and y'all can be there, and it's fully transparent. You can see what every subcontractor's bidding, and you can see all the costs. The next delivery model is design build. This model is gaining some popularity. There are a handful of school districts that have done this design build. We've probably done it on 3 or 4, actually about 6 or 7 school projects. It's gaining in popularity, but again, nowhere near as popular as the CM at risk model. My feeling is generally CM at risk is going to produce a higher quality project, and you're going to be much more engaged in the process. Under design build, it's really a model that's, I'd say, started in the private sector, and it's about driving down first cost. And so that's a good thing about design build, but when we're doing schools, we want the school district and your staff to be very involved in the design of the building. And when you do design build, you lose some of that involvement. It's a good delivery model, but again, probably in this situation, none of the factors that we're dealing with would lead me to think that design build makes the most sense. And as you can see, under some of these considerations, the very first one is minimal owner control of design and construction. Again, we don't have any factors that would lead us to suggest that this makes sense for this project. So you then have to, these are the criteria for determining the appropriateness of a construction delivery method. I feel like we're missing one. Hang on a second. Oh, it's just the slide came before the last one. Okay, so you have to consider things like do you have the staff to adequately manage the process that you're going to make a decision on? And I would say for CM at Risk, you definitely have the resources. I've met with your staff. You have the people to manage that project. The time constraints for delivery of the project, we don't have any extenuating circumstances here. I think CM at Risk makes a lot of sense from a time standpoint. The ability to ensure that a quality project is being built. Again, we are, as your architect under the CM at Risk delivery model, we are your fiduciary. We're going to be there making sure that what the contractor is doing is quality all the way, and your staff can be involved in the process and attend all of the meetings. Again, the capability of your staff to manage that process, I feel confident that your staff could do that given their experience. This would give us, I think, the most flexibility in meeting a good faith effort to comply with minority participation goals, as well as local participation. I think that's also very important. And then comparison of costs, as I've already said, design, bid, build would generally result in a lower first cost, but again, we're not seeing very many of those projects be successful. Right now, we have 3 of them in our office. Of the, say, 40 projects that we're doing right now, we got 3 that are design, bid, build. 2 of them are in default. CM at Risk, I don't think we have any CM at Risk in default, and we probably have over 30 of those projects underway. So definitely, from a cost benefit standpoint, I believe is definitely the way to go for you. The last delivery model is a public-private partnership, and that is the model that's used when you have significant tax benefits by doing it, tax credits and things like that, like the Jones County project. There were a lot of tax credits involved in that project. I don't think you have that opportunity here. This is a delivery model that generally costs more money. Now, if you got a lot of tax benefits, tax credits, things like that, you can make up for that, and it actually saves money. And I think most of you have probably heard the Jones County story, and obviously that project was very, very successful, but I don't think we have that opportunity in this case. So I would move away from the public-private partnership delivery model. Again, that brings us back to CM at Risk. I would recommend that you strongly consider that, and I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. I know that was quick. There's a lot written here, and there's a lot more that we could go over if you're interested in really diving into the details. What questions do you have?
Any questions for Mr. Harville, Mr. Fierce, or for Dottie? Okay, thank you, Mr. Harville.
Can I go back
Yep.
can I just
Yes,
go back
Mr.
to
King.
the design, what we originally looked at?
To the
We looking at, is that for 700 students?
Around 750.
750, okay, I like that number even better. Okay. How about, this will be for Superintendent Williams. I see a lot of that school is gonna be on some town land. We good with the
Well, all the
town?
pieces have to fall into place, but we have good faith assurances at this point. We're in the early stages just of grant completion, but we are working with the town manager of LaGrange, John Kraft, and he's working with his town council, and they do have a strong interest in going down this road with us and partnering with us with the goal of at some point essentially making all the legal pieces fit, but swapping property. So that's what we're looking at now. And of course, we have where we are as an option to build there, but building on the land behind the school eliminates the need for mobile units, lowering your cost, and also providing a higher quality educational space for the kids while the other school's being built. And then the day you leave that one, you can walk right back to the new one and be in there. Plus, the town would be interested in, again, we're in the early stages, but they have indicated an interest in keeping some of those buildings. So that would lower the cost of demolition further increasing the effectiveness of this pathway. So we're really excited about possibilities, and this was created with that probability in mind. But we believe that these steps will create an effective grant application, because there are some grant applications that we've seen, and we reviewed a few that have not been this detailed. They don't have anybody picked out for a construction manager or any clear ideas about what they'll do next, and they don't have a partnership with the municipality. So I feel great about this. I think we have a very strong chance of getting it. I feel that this is our year, and I'm really excited about our prospects and moving forward.
I think to reinforce the point about the grant application, you got to remember, being in DPI's shoes, or if you put yourself in their shoes, if they see an application where you have a site plan and a floor plan, and you've got, all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed, you have a construction manager on board, you are ready to execute. They're going to, I think, rank your proposal higher than someone who's not. Handful of districts recently have gotten grants and couldn't execute, and they gave the money back. And so DPI is real sensitive to that. They want to give grants to school districts that they believe can execute. So I believe making this move to going ahead and bringing on, or to deciding to go with the CM at risk so that you can start that procurement process is definitely the way to go.
And we have been advised by DPI that, as Ms. Ferris said, that's an emerging problem, especially in this latest grant cycle. People who secured the funding, say $50 million to build a high school, and they can't build the school for a number of reasons. But anything that we can do that will substantiate our case for saying this is a viable option for us and something that we not only would propose to do, but that we intend to do, I believe will strengthen our case.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Harvey, Mr. Ferris?
I have a
or
question.
Dottie? Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to the part about the city keeping some of those buildings in the land swap. Would there be stipulations on those buildings of what they could use them for and the time frames they can use them?
Well, what they would like to do is just keep the gym, and maybe some are part of that little wing connected to the gym. But most of the school, as we know it now, the two-story L-shaped building, the new part, and essentially the 1950s vintage building and the 1940s vintage building, the L-shaped classroom, they would tear that down, or we would tear that down.
The use would be recreation.
Right, that would be the Town of LaGrange Recreation Center.
Okay.
And we're getting a little bit ahead of that there, and I know we have to create the grant and all, and I certainly want to have you guys be the first to hear anything and to know about it. But those talks are ongoing on their side about just possibilities and about ideas. But they're really exciting ideas, because it would allow the Town of LaGrange to have a recreation facility of its own, and it currently doesn't have that and cannot afford it. But in this process, they do have the land behind the school, which they didn't have several years ago, and they do now. And it's had restrictions on it, but they've taken action over the last couple of months to get those restrictions lifted. And they're having a meeting, I think, Monday pursuant to that as well. So really excited about these steps forward. They're small steps now, preliminary steps, tentative steps, proposed steps. But I do believe this is our year, and I think it's going to happen. No promises, but I'm certain we're going to get this grant.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Harvey, Mr.
Thank you.
Ferris, and Dottie. So is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the use of construction manager at risk?
Yes, sir.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second? Second by Mr. King. Okay, let me see if I can get it right this time, Carol. Let me see if they changed the motion numbers. We have a motion by Mr. Woods and, yes. We have a motion by Mr. Woods and a second by Mr. King to approve the use of the construction manager at risk construction method, thank you, for the new E.B. Frink Middle School project, and to authorize the superintendent to issue a request for qualifications seeking a construction manager for the project as presented.
Perfect.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. There was, okay, the motion carries 7-0. Mr. Williams will issue a request for qualification for construction manager at risk.
Point of order, I don't know that that was that was not a 7-0 vote. I think it was was that a 6-1 vote?
It
Oh,
was
7-0, okay.
We're good? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Chair recognizes Mrs. Beverly Key to present a request to apply for federal funding for the 2023-2024 school year.
Good evening, Board Chair and Board members.
Evening.
I come before you seeking approval to apply for federal funding for the 2023-24 school year. These funds will improve additional instructional activities and other services to help our students and teachers meet high standards as set forth in the Every Student Succeed Act. The programs include, but are not limited to, Title I, Part A, improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged; Title I, Part D, prevention and intervention programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, and/or at risk, which is our Kennedy Home students; Title I, Part C, our migrant education; Title II, Part A, training and recruiting high-quality teachers and principals; Title III, language acquisition; Title IV, student support and academic enrichment; and finally, our comprehensive support and improvement, which is better known as our CSI schools, which we currently have LCLA and Northeast only getting those funds.
Any questions for Mrs. Key? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Key. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the application of federal funds?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the application for federal funds for 2023-24 school year.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cash. I have a motion by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mrs. Cash to approve the application of federal funds for the 2023-2024 school year as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Key will apply for those federal funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, these funds will help provide additional instructional activities and services for the students of Lenore County Public Schools. Chair recognizes Mrs. Amy Jones to present a request to apply for career and technical education funding for the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. I'm requesting approval of the CTE local application. This application must be submitted to NCDPI in order to receive and use state and federal funds for CTE programs and services. CTE programs include PRC 13, PRC 14, and PRC 17. Successful applications will yield approximately $3.4 million in program funding and positions. The local plan and assurances certification are attached for your review.
Any questions for Mrs. Jones? Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the local application for career and technical education funding? Motion by Mr. Anderson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Woods. We have a motion by Mr. Anderson and a second by Mr. Woods to approve the local application for career and technical education funding for the 2023-2024 school year as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Jones, will you please apply?
I most certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you. And these funds will also help provide additional services and programs for the students from Lenore County Public Schools. Okay, we're going to skip that one. All right, chair recognizes Mrs. Frances Herring to present the fees, fines, and charges for the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Every year I come before you asking for approval of the fees, fines, and charges that are asked of our elementary students, our middle grade students, and our high school students. There's really nothing of significant change in elementary. Middle school, the all sports games has gone up by $1 with request for that. And the For high school, the National Honor Society dues have gone from 25 to 30, and that's based at the national level. And the senior class activities, the cap and gown, diploma covers, announcements, because of costs of shipping, availability, those costs, we generally have said it be up to 75. It really is closer to 100. So we wanted the fees supplemental charges to be more accurate on the charges there. And that's the only changes that I'd like to point out from years past. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Herring? All right, thank you, Mrs. Herring. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to fines, fees, and charges?
So moved to approve.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. King. We have a motion by Mr. Woods and a second by Mr. King to approve the fees, fines, and charges for the 2023-2024 school year as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, I guess we'll look for the principals of these actions. Chair recognizes Mr. Brett Williams to present a request from Tharrington Smith LLP for retainer rates for legal services effective July 1, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair noted, we have received word from our law firm representing us, Tharrington Smith, that they have increased their rates. The rates were actually increased, I believe, Carolyn, before the pandemic, but Carolyn contacted me and said that she and the other partners had discussed it and decided to hold off on that. And then a year and a half passed, and they approached us again and said, well, with the difficulties of the pandemic and the difficulties that so many districts were facing, and we weren't even back from remote status fully then, they did not continue with the request at that time. They put it on hold. So they have brought it forward tonight. It's essentially $10 increase for the attorneys, for the partners and the associates, and the paralegals, I think it's $5. So we're bringing that to you for your consideration and hopefully your approval tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? Or Mrs. Emergency? Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to legal services?
Make a motion to approve the increased retainer rates and agreement.
Motion by Mrs. Cash. Is there a second? Second, Mr. King. So we have a motion by Mrs. Cash and a second by Mr. King to approve the Tharrington Smith retainer rates and agreement for legal services effective July 1, 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 6-1. Mr. Williams, please notify Tharrington Smith.
You're notified.
Thank you. Thank you, Board.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of a Lenore County Board of Education representative for the Lenore Community College Board of Trustees. The Lenore County Board of Education is required by law to make 4 appointments, one each year, to the Lenore Community College Board of Trustees for a 4-year term. We have 2 people who have expressed interest in serving on the Board of Trustees for the current 4-year term. Chair will open the floor for nominations to Lenore Community College Board of Trustees, and we will vote on the nominations. Is there a nomination for Lenore County Board of Education representative to the Lenore Community College Board of Trustees?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
I nominate Mrs. Barbara Seifert.
All right. So we have a nomination by Mr. Anderson, Ms. Barbara Seifert. Are there any more nominations? Okay. There are no more nominations. The chair will close the floor for nominations. We will now vote on the representative. All in favor of Ms. Barbara Seaforth as Lenore County Board of Education representative to Lenore Community College Board of Trustees, please signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Mrs. Barbara Seaforth has been selected to represent Lenore County Board of Education on the Lenore Community College Board of Trustees. We want to thank Mrs. Seaforth for her willingness to serve as a Lenore County Board of Education representative on the Lenore Community College Board of Trustees. Now, is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to closed session?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Lenore County Board of Education enter into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel files, to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, and to consider matters relating to the initial employment of an individual employee.
Motion by Mr. Anderson, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. I have a motion by Mr. Anderson, a second by Mr. Smith to move to closed session. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. We are now in closed session. Thank you. Chair recognizes that the Laurel County Board of Education is back in open session. Is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to the monthly personnel recommendations?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this vote.
Okay, Mr. Anderson will be recusing himself because of family
Family
member.
spouses only.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve personnel report with the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Smith, and a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cash. Sorry about that, I saw her first. So we have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mrs. Cash to approve the monthly personnel recommendations with the addendum as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Williams will notify you.
Six, he's recused.
Excuse me, Mr. Anderson. 6-0, motion carries 6-0. How soon they forget. Mr. Williams will notify the employees of the action. And you don't have anything to say to Mr. Williams? I don't. All right, with no further business come before this board, is there a recommendation or motion pertaining to adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second? Can I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Got a motion by Mr. Anderson, a second by Mr. Smith to adjourn the June 5th, 2023 regular board meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, chair will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Right.
Meeting is adjourned. Please stay safe.